Well, good morning. It's Sunday morning, and something rather spectacular just happened in the swamp last night. My colleague and friend for many years, who's been with me on many episodes of Florida football, and of course, many times in the swamp, was sitting next to me last night when we saw Florida beat Tennessee, and not just beat them, but his friends wrote in his column for Gator Bay, shredded the Volunteers. Good morning to you, friends.
Good morning.
It seemed like old times last night. I tweeted out basically that this was the vintage, looked like the vintage swamp. And while there's lots to talk about in the game, a lot to talk about, I want to talk about right now the feeling of what it's like. We've been there many times, friends, many times. We've seen ebb and flow. We saw Steve Spurrier. We saw Urban Meyer. We've seen Dan Mullen for a moment a couple of years ago. Last night was one of the best nights in the swamp I can remember. How about you?
Well, it was good to see the fans so engaged from start to finish. This was a game that I think the fans had a lot to do with the win. I think they energized the team. I think they demoralized the Vols. I think they I think they were there. That they made Tennessee's life miserable on their offensive line. Five false starts, bad communication throughout the game. You could tell by their people. Graham Mertz, it's funny, said afterward, he's sitting there talking to his coach, and he says he sees his coach's lips moving, but all he can't hear anything because there's so much noise coming from
Yeah.
the fans. I thought that was a really uh, nice tribute to how the fans had reacted there, and this is what it takes. The swamp needs to go back to being the
The
swamp,
swamp.
and a
Yeah.
game like this can do it. I go back, I harken back, hail back to 1990 when everybody goes there to see Steve Spurrier's offense, not knowing what to think about it. And next thing you know, Shane Matthews has taken the Gators all the way down the field, like boom, 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 boom. And it's 7-0 on Oklahoma State. Before you know it, it's 50-7 final score.
Mhm.
And the fans got energized in the games afterward. All of a sudden, you start seeing Florida fans are just going absolutely nuts over the Gators, and they're yelling, they're screaming. The swamp really became that intimidating place to play. It was that way throughout the Spurrier years. Kind of lost a little bit of luster during the Zook years, picked it back up with Urban, and we've only seen it sporadically since then. This, I think, was there's only two games I can think of that have been like this in the last, I'd say 10, 12 years. And that is the Auburn game in 2019. That was like that. And that was the game, Kyle Trask's first start in the swamp.
Yeah.
And that game was like that. And the other game that I think that was like that was Alabama in 2021. But I think this was different because I think the people sensed we'd win this game. I think in 2021, I don't think people sensed we'd win. I think they just were there and they hated Alabama so much and hated Nick Saban so much. They wanted to yell and scream at him.
They were
This
hoping.
was,
They were just hoping is what they were doing.
yeah, this was a game, I think, in which the Florida fans said, we're showing up and we're going to be part of it. And they were.
And you're right. And I think I wrote this last night in a tweet. The swamp, when it's weaponized like that, is one of the most dynamic places for football to be played and a huge advantage for the Gators. We saw that, as you pointed out, all the mistakes Tennessee made. I've heard loud games, and I'm not sure I can say this was loudest, but there were periods of time when I thought maybe this is the loudest I've ever heard it there. The fans really got after it at the right time. And this was something that we talked about all week. Urban Meyer talked about it. You want to score first. You want to get down there. I'm just not even talk about the extra points right now, although Trey Smack seems to have it under control. And you want to put Milton in a cauldron. And that's exactly what What happened, he began to feel it. He started making mistakes. Now I got to give a lot of credit to a lot of people here because this is retribution for a lot of people, friends. This is the respect card being played again for Billy Napier, who, by the way, was barbecued pretty badly the last couple of weeks. This was the emergence of the running game in a very, very effective reemergence in a very effective manner. It was the sudden appearance of a new defense that looks really good and fun and looks effective. I think Tennessee led the league in rushing, as I recall, before they went in this game. And it was just a sweet night for a lot of people. Remember the old poem, "There's no joy in Mudville tonight"?
Yeah, oh
Mighty,
yeah.
mighty Casey struck out. Let me tell you something. The joy was back in the swamp, friends.
It was quite a ball game. Tennessee, lest we forget, led the country in sacks going into the ball game. They got one. That's it. You know, they dropped. They went from all the way from one down to number 7 overnight in terms of sacks.
Yeah.
So that tells you something right there. The pass protection was exceptional. We had a false start early in the game, and this is the thing about it. You think about this: they had a false start on the first series. They had a holding call later on, but they did not have a single penalty that derailed the offense or extended a drive for the defense.
Or
Not
fumble.
even
No
one.
fumbles, no
No,
turnovers.
no turnovers, whatever. They had 3 fourth down stops all in the second half.
That's a rarity. That's something new.
Oh yeah. Well, and the thing about it is as Billy said, those should count as turnovers because you stop them on downs, and you take over there. They don't get to punt it away and flip the field on you. You get the ball right there, and that was it. That was I was very impressed with that. Those
Speaking of
downs.
impressed, excuse me for interrupting you, there were several moments you and I kind of sort of like, wow, did you see that on? I think the big Des play it'll be his career play. We have a great photo with your article right up right now. A photo by Chris Spears, your article about Desmond Watson put the hammer down on Joe Milton and welcome him to the swamp. Big Des doesn't get many sacks, let's be honest. But boy, that was an effective play, a great play. It sort of lit up everybody in the swamp was already lit. So that's the kind of big play you need on defense. And the big pick that they had earlier, which I think was a big key. So talk about 2 or 3 of the key plays you remember, Franz. I know you like the big Des play because you were sitting next to me and I could tell.
Oh gosh, how'd you like to be Joe Milton? Joe Milton is 6'5" and 250 pounds, and he got Desmond Watson's thighs are bigger around than that 250-pound man, and Desmond catches him, and you see him in the picture. He's actually lifting him up off the floor, off
Like
the
a
ground,
rag doll, friends.
and then he fell on top of him. And I got to tell you what. I guarantee you there isn't enough ice for the coldest ice bath in all of Knoxville. Of course, ice baths in Knoxville, somebody's got to remember the recipe, and we don't know that they'll be able to do that up there. Up there in the land where the top pickup line in a bar is nice tooth, baby. Anyway.
All right, here we go. Boom. I
Right.
don't have any rim shots for you, Franz. I'm sorry, but I'm not loaded for those.
Anyway, Florida came out there and did a number on that team. They really did. And I think Tennessee was in shock. I don't think they were prepared for it. I think when they breezed down the field on that first possession, 6 plays, 71 yards, Um, I think a lot of people think, "Oh my gosh, it's all over now." But boom, boom, boom. 4 plays later, there goes Trevor Etienne. And you know what I loved about him is he hits that second level and he literally runs. He runs into the DB. The DB is I don't think is really aware that this is going to happen. I think the DB wanted to avoid him if at all possible, and he runs into him, and then he's got like this much of a step, and all of a sudden it's like a 5 yard difference,
Yeah.
just like that. It's like this
Separation,
guy.
man. Boom. He was down the field.
This guy's got afterjets, and 62 yards for a touchdown. You get a blocked extra point, so you've had a missed field goal, well, a blocked field goal. That field goal got blocked to both of them by the same guy coming from the same angle, and wouldn't have happened except the ball was kicked so low. They moved Trey Smack in, that changed, and I think Trey Smack will be the kicker the rest
He's
of
your
the year.
guy. He's your guy.
Needs
now.
to be. Well, you look, they of all Florida's kickoffs, not a single kickoff was returned. I mean,
I forgot about that. That's true.
He's got a boomer of a leg. But you look at what happens after that, it would have been easy. I think last year, this Florida team would have deflated. I think it would have been I think that missed field goal would have been a slow leak. Then maybe let's say they score a touchdown, but they get the missed extra point, another slow leak, etc. like that. And I think that this is the kind of team that last year, that would have been like
folded.
Yeah, you take those those big birthday balloons you get, and you can stick a little needle in them barely, and it'll leak slowly out of there. It doesn't pop like a regular helium balloon will. And I think that this is kind of what would have happened last year. This year, I don't think it fazed him. I really don't
So
think
this team is more of a tour, right? They kind of get there. They get there. They even look like they're playing with more poise and confidence. They line up in the right positions. They know what they're going to do. I love some of the shifts I saw in defense. Let's talk about that defense, friends. How about Austin Armstrong? What a game he called last night, and some of the highlights. I mean, had to pick. Talk about two of the. We talked about Big Des. The defense stepped up and played really well. Now you wonder how good could they be, Franz? So let's talk about that.
Well, you got Scooby Williams. Scooby Williams, I think, is an emerging star.
I agree, 100%.
As is Shamar James. You look at them; those two guys can really, really play. And the cool thing about both of these guys is they can play them all over. They can play them all over. They don't have to be. They're listed as inside guys, but they don't have to be inside guys. They can play outside. They can play inside. They're really, really capable kids, and I've been very, very pleased watching them. Cam Jackson, I thought Cam Jackson had an absolutely tremendous game against Tennessee. He had 5 solo tackles there. And this is one of the things that having those big guys in the middle, like Cam Jackson, like Desmond Watson, I call them the total eclipse of the sun. If they go walking outside together at the same time, they will block out the sun. They're so big. But Cam, and this is one of the keys to it. You put these guys over the nose, and quite frankly, they have to be doubled. Okay, if you're doubling on the inside on the guy,
somebody's got to be open. Somebody's got to be.
It's gonna free those guys up outside on the edges, and this is what we didn't have last year. Yeah. We did not have that guy on because Gervon Dexter, he played a lot of nose, but I mean he's not a nose guy. He never has been, never will be a nose guy. Chris McClellan last year wasn't big enough or experienced enough. Chris McClellan's another one who played a really good ball game. Caleb Banks played a really good ball game. You look at they go with this size, 3 deep, 4 deep, sometimes 4 across sometimes, and it really does stop that running game. I don't know. Let me see what the Vols got. I don't have the stats quite handy right now. Let me see this a second. Rushing, boom, game log. Tennessee ran 30 times for 100 yards. Through 3 games, get this now, buddy. Through 3 games, the Florida rush defense has allowed 83.67 yards a game. You know, last year, I mean, weren't they? Didn't they resemble a sieve last year?
Swiss cheese.
Yeah. Well,
Swiss,
right now they're
didn't Tennessee lead the league in rushing?
They were right up there. Let's see where they are right now.
Oh, yeah, they
uh,
were where they are now. So while we do that, let's don't forget about the pick.
they were leading it until yesterday.
Yes, that's
And
what I'm saying. Devin Moore's pick and Dez's big hit on Milton. Will be one of the best plays of the year. The pick and turnover. If they just get some picks and turnovers once in a while and make a stop once in a while, we said this, and don't shoot themselves in the foot. This could be a decent team, friends. I've said it last week. I saw them against McNeese State. They were a much better football team. People say, "Oh, you can't tell." Yes, I can tell. I've seen enough football games to see routes on air and see what I see. And you too, we knew they were going to get better. We didn't know if they'd get better in time. You and I both picked them. We had a lot of conversation about Billy over last week. I get it. Fans get upset because they think that, Colorado's has done it overnight, and Billy looks like he's slow to make a move. I think we saw the real Billy Napier last night. He was calm and cool, got angry a couple of times, called a decent game, I think, even a good game. And Graham Mertz is just also emerging as a very calm, silent, good field general, they used to call it, decent passer, and a guy who knows how to run a game. So I think we owe Graham Mertz a little bit of an apology for all you people who hounded him, saying he was not a good player. He was a reject from Big Ten. I think he's a little more than that. We knew about the running game. But the combination, friends, I think Billy calls it complementary football. The combination, special teams played pretty good. Offense played really good, and defense played really good. That's a winning combination, friends.
They played well. They turned in a really good football game. I think Florida's best days are ahead. I think that this is we hear that expression, turning a page. I think this is a game in which Florida turned a page. You could say they grew up a bit. Maybe that's a term that people would want to say. Is they grew up? The kids, the training wheels came off. Let's say, but Florida, that defense is going to hold them in ball games. The offensive line did a terrific job. And they've got running backs that know how to pick up the extra yards. I'll tell you a play that will go vastly underrated: the touchdown pass to Montrell. If you look at that, watch the replay on it. Graham Mertz has the guy coming, and he sidearms the ball around the defensive tackle, flips it out there to Montrell.
He can handle pressure. He can handle pressure, friends. Yeah. We saw that.
Well, very few quarterbacks. That was a Patrick Mahomes type of move.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Patrick Mahomes will take that and he'll find a way to get a ball around somebody. Mm-hmm. And you got to have a lot of confidence in your arm to be able to do that. Even though it was, he only flipped the ball out there maybe 8 or 9 yards. A lot of things can go wrong when you're not throwing the ball up here where we think of it as it should be coming out of the ear. That's the old expression that quarterbacks use is Spurrier. You'd always watch him at practice. Got to come out of the ear. Got to come out of the ear.
Actually, Steve threw sidearm himself some, so I remember that well. But yeah, but he did teach it up here. He teaches up here. You're right. Yeah. Friends, here's the important question. You're a reporter. You have investigative instincts. You can take this out. Have we determined whether the streaker was from Florida or Tennessee?
He was Vol.
Looked like he had creamsicle pants on or something.
He was a Vol.
Yeah. So how'd that work for him?
Well, he got to spend some time and with some probably 1,000 or so of his close friends over.
He'll be wearing orange again, though. He'll be wearing an orange shirt again.
Yeah, he got a nice, gorgeous jumpsuit to wear and some flip flops. I'm sure he loved that concrete bunk he got to sleep on last night. I got to tell you what, coming into my parking space. You want to talk about, oh gosh, this was straight out of Dollywood. This guy is wearing checkerboard, orange.
I saw him everywhere.
And he's got a hard hat with a T on the side of it. And
that might work in Knoxville, friend. They don't work in the swamp.
I took one look at this character and I thought to myself, there should be rules that should prevent you from leaving your state.
Dress codes.
You should. Some people should be required to have a passport, and we should have passport control. We should have passport control.
That's funny. That's the funny thing you said in a long time.
At the Florida state line.
Oh my goodness! Hey, Franz. Here's what I'm gonna get. Because you got a big day today, and I want to get you out of here. I'll stay as long as you want to, but I don't want to impinge on your important date. Here's a good point right here. And I think this is the thing we're talking about right here from the standpoint of what is the respect. Lee says, where are all those Gators calling for Billy to be fired? Trust the process, Gator fans. Trust the process. Your thoughts, friends?
Well, it's somebody wrote last week, Florida needs to go ahead and fire Billy Napier and avoid the rush, be first in line to hire Deion. Now, I got to tell you what, Deion's win last night, that was pretty darned exciting. But I got to tell you what, I like what's happening to Florida. I like where the Gators are going. I think this Florida team is going to win 8 ball games. I've said so all along. I'll say so right now. And again, this is a team that's going to win 8 ball games. Take a look at their next 4, buddy. They could go into the Georgia game. They could legitimately go into the Georgia game with a 7-1 record.
Scary.
Now, you got to remember, Stuart Mandel predicted the Gators would be 3-9, 1-7 in the SEC play. I think we've already got our 1. I think
this is for Stuart if he can't count, so I can get it up there. Okay, go
ahead. One of our friends, a guy that we both respect, has been calling Graham Mertz the number 14 quarterback in a 14-team league. I got to tell you what, from what I saw Saturday, he's better than Joe Milton. I'll take him any day of the week over. I'll take Joe Milton.
Wow, that's quite a statement right there. You could have said that in July, and they'd run you out of the state.
Sure,
now it seems plausible.
Joe Milton. I've been thinking all week about it. They've been talking about how strong Joe Milton's arm was. I don't know if you remember, there was a guy at Grambling named Matthew Reed, played in the World Football League. I remember a game against the Jacksonville Sharks. Matthew Reed drops back into the end zone, has a receiver wide open at the 50, and the ball landed at the Jacksonville 20. He overshot the man by 30 yards.
Just a little bit, just a small bit.
That Matthew could take the ball, could stand in one end zone, throw it into the other. The only other quarterback I've ever heard of who could do that was a guy named Rudy Bukic, who played for the Bears. Unbelievable. Rudy Bukic used to get down on one knee and throw the ball and hit the goalpost, from midfield, But Matthew Reed could do that. And I've been thinking all week long, here's everybody talking about how strong Joe Milton's arm is.
So
Well, guess what? He made a couple of really strong arm
he
throws
made
that
some
were
nice throws. I got to give him
very
that. He made
nice.
some very nice throws.
He also made some really bad throws out there.
Yeah.
I don't think he could read a defense spelled cat if you spelled him the C, the A, and the T. If you spotted him those three letters, I still don't think he could read the defense.
Yeah, let me get you out of here with a couple of things. Excuse me, finish your thought, but I want to get to two things: how the game ended, and there's some of the numbers. But finish your thought. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
He was dazed and confused that whole ball game. Of course, I can understand why he'd be dazed and confused after Desmond fell on him. I guarantee it. This guy's probably needs to have his body checked for early onset of osteoporosis.
They have a pancake for offense. Ought to be a squash for defense. The Desmond plays.
But you look at that. I mean, Cameron Jackson. Let's look at this. Cameron Jackson had 5 tackles in the ball game, and which I thought was pretty darn good. Desmond Watson had I know he had that one play. Let me see how many tackles did he have. Let me find him here.
All right, while you're looking for that, I'm gonna reset it. Tell folks this Buddy and Franz little pop-up show on Sunday. We do this sometimes. A long night last night in the Swamp. Terrific night for Gator fans. The Swamp has been revived. It's become weaponized again, and it was quite an event to be there last night. I don't think Tom Petty ever sounded better. I'll put it that way. And so we're going to thank our sponsors who normally carry us during the week. And our friends at Meldon Law, appreciate all they do. Official law firm of the University of Florida. We want to thank our friends at Red Star Medical Research and our friends, all the people who sponsor. So I thank you very much. This Martin and Franz, 2 points we have to go. I want you to look at the numbers. Tell me what you see, and then I want to close it out with how the game finished last night. Ugly. All right, numbers.
All right, the biggest number, 37-34. 37 minutes and 34 seconds of possession time. Remember what we talked about during the week, and I said Thursday night Florida will play defense with its offense. That's what they're doing. Mm-hmm. This reminds me, I don't know if you remember this or not, the 1984 Gators, where the defense was only on the field for an average of 22 minutes a game because
the
Gators
had the Great Wall.
They had the Great Wall. You had Lorenzo Hampton, Neil Anderson, and John L. Williams, and the Gators just kept pounding it and pounding it and pounding it. And Kerwin Bell only had easy throws to make because of that. And of course, Kerwin had 4 or 5 guys that ended up playing the NFL, including Dr. Gary Roll, who's now the FSU team physician. And he ended up playing in the NFL, but that was one of his receivers. We think of Ricky Nattiel all the time, but Ray McDonald was there, Gary Roll, Frankie Hayes. Florida really, really had some talent on that team. And this team is starting to remind me of that because of the way that they are taking possession of the ball game. You look at what they did last week. Tennessee came in there expecting to run the ball 75 to 80 times. I mean, I'm talking about running plays. They got 63 snaps. In other words, if you think of a possession as minimum 4 plays, Florida took 4 possessions off of them. Think about that for a second.
One number I don't want to forget, I think is key. You know who led the team in receptions?
Yes, Eugene Wilson.
A guy who didn't play after the first quarter. Trey Wilson.
Yeah, Trey Wilson. He's got a bruised shoulder.
Thankfully, that's good news.
Yeah, I think I would imagine they'll probably sit him for the Charlotte game. They're not going to need him to beat Charlotte. Mm-hmm. But I would imagine that they'll sit him for the Charlotte game and then have him ready to go at Kentucky. Kentucky can't run the ball. Florida's going to beat them up there. And I'm gonna tell you what. If you can't, I don't think anybody's going to run the ball on the Gators for one thing, and with a team like Kentucky which can't run the ball, and they have trouble blocking for the quarterback too.
Yeah.
I think the Gators are I like that. I like that game more and more and more. And I know a lot of people were saying, "Well, Florida's going to lose up there," and I don't know. We were talking before the season began, and we were talking about games that Florida would win. And I said a month ago, I said Florida's going to beat the Vols here in Gainesville.
You did say that.
And
I remember that you said that.
and
You're an oracle, man. You are an oracle. Listen to you calling that shot like you did early on.
Well, yeah, buddy, I've been around it. I've been around so
Really?
dang much
Really?
football.
No kidding. You've been around a bit?
Yeah, you know, um, it kills me to see some of the talk about the Gators and stuff like that, and I keep asking myself, some of you guys need to watch more football and quit playing PlayStation so daggum much, because I think that we get a lot of guys that do that. Um, I Florida's going to be a pretty good football team. I think eight games. I really and truly believe 8 games are possible.
Well, Shane Matthews has been saying this the whole time. What I'm going to say to the fans is trust the people who know, not these guys who want hits, all right? Trust the ones who have some wisdom and gray hair and experience like Shane. He's been telling you all along, don't worry about Graham Mertz. This team is going to be good. They're probably going to win 8 games. He's been telling you that. And now all of a sudden it looks a lot of things. Here's the thing that impressed me, friends. Last night, Billy was already saying we can play a lot better. A lot better. I mean, that was a heck of a signature win for him. And a great night at Reviving the Swamp. He says better. Friends, if they get better, how good could they be?
Well, if they're 7-1 going into the Georgia game,
pretty good.
Be pretty good.
Wait. What did that guy at ESPN say what the record would be? I forget what was that. Who was that said Florida would be what? What was that record that he picked there? Something like 3.
Oh, it wasn't ESPN. It was Stuart Mandel.
Yeah.
Stuart Mandel predicted the Gators 3-9.
There you go. Well, that ain't gonna happen.
And he predicted the Gators 1-7 in the SEC with a 3-9 record. Well, with a 1-7 record in the SEC, well, guess what? We got our win.
Yeah, there you go. 1 to go. Charlotte made it so far. 3 out of 4.
Give him credit. He picked it up. And I got to tell you something else, buddy. Let's just settle one last thing. Everybody talks about the SEC is how bad the SEC is. Wait till November.
Yeah. I agree.
I go to 2015. 2015, Alabama was dead. They lost to Ole Miss in Tuscaloosa. Everybody was saying, "Oh my gosh, Nick Saban better get his money in stocks and bonds because he's going to need it for his old age."
Yeah.
And they lose to Ole Miss, and then what do? They win the next 12 ball games.
Right. I just got a signal my battery's about to die on my computer because I plugged it in. I didn't plug it in. So I want to get this in before it dies. The ending of the game, how it ended up, not pretty.
No, it wasn't. But I'll tell you one thing I did like. I loved the way the Gators came up there in force to defend their quarterback. That was a cheap shot against him. He's already down. He's taking a knee, and the guy went down there and hit him. Shouldn't have even touched him. What's he think he's accomplishing? It should be in the last play of the game. And the guy does that. But I love the way the Gators came to his defense. Now, they're probably going to get a couple guys suspended for the Charlotte game. Well, big deal. We could play you and me at the tackles against Charlotte. We'd probably have a chance to win the game anyway.
France, I've lost
But
no weight. I'm gonna have to be a guard or a wide receiver. I can't do it.
yeah, well, you probably don't throw the ball quite as far as you used to.
Yeah,
So
can throw it
quarterback's out of the
15
question.
yards, 20, 15 yards, or maybe 10.
Quarterback's
Oh,
probably out of the
yeah.
question. But
Now here's what I want to get to: the timeouts. Little gamesmanship there. Why did Billy call the timeout with 14 seconds to go? And more importantly, why did Josh Heupel call one with 7 seconds?
well, Billy did it because what he didn't want to do is he didn't want to give up the 5 yards. He let the clock run and run and run, and he calls the timeout because he didn't want to give up the 5 yards on the penalty, which he did. And they end up getting a delay of game anyway because after that was over, they had it huddled and they were too late coming out of that huddle, and so they called them for delay.
Yeah.
But that was what that was all about. That wasn't.
But the one of Heupel.
Heupel's
was
was all about gamesmanship,
It
but
was.
Josh, let me tell you something. For all the people who want to talk about Josh Heupel, let me tell you something about him that a lot of people need to think about. Ask the people at UCF. Ask the people at UCF about what happened in their locker room when he left the year he left for Tennessee. His football team despised him. And it's going to happen in Tennessee too. I guarantee you that.
All right, we got 20 seconds before we're going to lose this